Good morning, beautiful people. I am out on my morning routine. Lately, that has been walking due to the fact that I suffer from achalasia. And yesterday, it affected my entire day. What is achalasia? Well, let me get cleaned up and I'll explain that to you. So, I have achalasia. What is achalasia, you might ask? Achalasia is an autoimmune disorder that affects the esophagus. And basically, for me, I have type 2 achalasia, and my esophagus doesn't function properly. It doesn't function at all. Um, Normally, when we eat, once we are ready to swallow the food or even drink, it affects liquids for me as well. Um, our upper and lower esophageal sphincters open up, and the food enters into the esophagus. And the esophagus pushes the food down into your lower esophageal sphincter, and then your esophageal sphincter closes, and you are enjoying your food. My system does not function like that anymore. My esophagus, when I swallow food, the first esophageal sphincter will open up and the food just falls into my stomach. There is no like involuntary muscle movement from my esophagus. So the food, that's part one. Part two is that sometimes the lower sphincter doesn't open at the same time. So the food will actually just sit on top of my lower esophageal sphincter. I found this out recently because I was having issues with swallowing. They developed about 3 years ago. They were minor symptoms. I associated them with reflux, and I didn't like. Achalasia is a rare autoimmune disorder, and right now the medical community doesn't know why it occurs. It just develops. And about 3 years ago, I started to have constant heartburn after I would eat. And so I would just treat the symptoms because I thought it was, me. I'm not eating as healthy as I could, so I thought it was bad choices in eating. So I started to modify my diet, and I would treat the symptoms with over the counter medication, and they would alleviate the symptoms. And it was just normal, like the burning and just general feelings of discomfort associated with acid reflux. Gradually, it turned into after every meal, I felt like something was stuck around the area of my lower esophagus. So as the condition progressed, during my meals, I would feel like everything I ate was getting stuck in the lower esophageal sphincter. And it caused a little discomfort. And then later, the burning sensation would come back. But I didn't really think anything of it until it started to affect liquid. Because I could always wash whatever thing that was stuck there, or whatever feeling. I could wash it, drink water, and it would go away. But one morning I woke up, first thing I wanted to do was get some water, and I drank the water, and it didn't go into my stomach. It just stayed right at the top, and it was uncomfortable. A little painful, but uncomfortable. And I thought it was just like a one-off thing because it didn't happen often. But it continued, and it became more. It became a constant thing, and throughout the day. At first, it started like when I woke up, I would have to deal with that, and then I wouldn't have to deal, and then I would be fine the rest of the day. But then I would encounter it throughout the day, and I don't know. It just sometimes it would hurt, it would be painful, and other times I think it was just panic because it felt like whatever it was not going to the content was not going to go down and I was going to somehow aspirate it. Gradually that developed into night what I thought was regurgitation. I mean, it is regurgitation, but I thought it was just acid reflux. I still had no clue. And so what would happen at night, I would aspirate content, and sometimes it would burn. So I thought it was like acid. Hello, I thought it was acid. So after like maybe about 3 months of that happening off and on, maybe about once a month, it started to happen more. So I modified my diet more. I made sure that I didn't eat after a certain time, after 6 o'clock. And even that didn't help. And then I specifically recall that one night when I aspirated, it just had this weird like taste to it. And so I said, you know what? I need to go to the doctor. Oh, let me go back. So during this time, I started to, at the beginning of this year, I wanted to go on a fitness journey. I'm like 45 years old, and like I'm 45 years old. And I just wanted to make some changes and be a little bit more healthy. Of course, due to the pandemic, that kind of put everything on hold because I have a couple of underlying conditions. But I did notice that when I was working out and I would drink my water, I could feel the water go up and down my esophagus, like especially if I was on my back and I was doing like sit-ups or crunches or leg lifts or something. I could feel the water move up and down in my throat and in my esophagus, and I was like, what? This is wrong. So the night aspirations became a lot more intense, and one night they had this like weird taste. And I thought to myself, this isn't normal. I need to go to the doctor. So I scheduled an appointment with the specialist. I told him my situation, and he performed an endoscopy. He told me not to, or they gave me directions before the endoscopy. They told me not to eat 12 hours before. I knew something was wrong, so I decided not to eat for 24 hours. So I went in for the endoscopy, and all I remember is they were talking to me, and then the next thing I knew, I woke up and my shoulder was all wet. There were like food particles on my arm, and they were like, oh, you needed this. We're so glad you came in. You have achalasia. You have achalasia. And I was like, what is achalasia? And they explained to me, not in much detail either. They wanted to confirm it with another test, so they had me do a barium swallow. And what occurs in a barium swallow is you drink this like thick white liquid, and then they take x-rays of your esophagus, and they watch that liquid. And as I swallowed the liquid, it would just sit on the top of my esophagus. So that's when they confirmed that I had achalasia, but they sent me to a specialist because I needed to discuss my options. I met with 2 specialists who perform procedures to alleviate the symptoms of achalasia, and one decided he wanted to make sure that I was suffering from achalasia and what type. I didn't know there were 3 types. So I underwent an esophageal manometry, and that's a procedure where they insert this gauge that measures the pressure into your nose, and you have to swallow, and as you swallow, they push it into your esophagus all the way down to your lower sphincter, your lower esophageal sphincter. And during that test, you swallow. liquids, mine was water, and it measures the pressure in your esophagus. The test looked weird, but I was so interested in it. And due to that test, I learned that my upper and lower esophageal sphincters did not open simultaneously, and that my esophagus did not push, the involuntary muscles did not work at all. So basically, when you swallow food, your esophagus pushes the food down into your stomach. Mine doesn't do that. The food just drops into my esophagus, and it just sits there. So I really have to chew my food well. After learning that, I went and did more research and found out that the symptoms of burning that I felt was actually not reflux, but content fermenting in my esophagus. I know. So that time that I told you I aspirated content and it tasted weird, it's probably fermented content. And that really, like, at times I'm nauseous, like I'm getting nauseous right now, because I could feel, I had a little bit of crackers before I went out on my morning run, and I could, like, depending on how I feel, I'll run or I'll walk, but generally I can feel it, especially if I'm running. I can feel the content sitting in my esophagus, and it is so uncomfortable, and it's so nauseating. So anyway, excuse me. So now I make weird noises all the time because of this, but I've decided that I'm gonna go with the poem procedure. Oh, so sorry, sidetrack. So the person who conducted the test, she sent the result to the doctor, and the doctor told me that I needed to choose what procedure I wanted to have. I chose the poem procedure, which is called the peroral endoscopic myotomy, and I watched this procedure on YouTube. It's the least invasive, but what they do is they make an incision in your esophagus, and then they take a probe and they put it in between the lining of your esophagus, and they go and they make their way to your muscle, and they make an incision in the muscle to open up your sphincter, your lower sphincter. Unfortunately, that creates other issues with concerns of like acid coming back up into your esophagus, but it will alleviate the issue of food fermenting in my, or content fermenting in my esophagus. I'm a little concerned about the procedure. I am. But it's supposed to be the least invasive. Tomorrow I have to go on a liquid diet for the next 2 days, and then I'll probably be on a liquid diet for a week after. But the doctor has assured me that it's not going to be a painful procedure. I don't believe him, but I just can't wait to feel better. You know, the thought of having content ferment in my stomach is just not pleasing at all, and I'm sure it's causing a lot. Like, I have asthma, and as of late, my asthma has been really, really bad. I've had it under control for a little while, for a long time actually, and I no longer take shots, and I didn't generally have to use my nebulizer for almost 2-3 years now, but due to this and the whatever I'm aspirating is causing me tremendous issues. I'm producing mucus all the time, and I'm having fits of or coughing fits, and that's another thing. Like, now when I eat, excuse me, now when I eat, I will have coughing fits, as soon as I swallow. It doesn't matter if it's liquid or solid. I'll fall into coughing fits. So my neighbors probably think I have COVID, but I do not. I have achalasia. So the procedure is going to happen very soon in the next couple of days. Today is the 17th. It's supposed to happen on the 20th, and I'm nervous. I've seen the procedure done on YouTube. I'm sure you can find it. Look up POEM procedure, POEM, and you see how the procedure is performed. So I made this video to share my experience with achalasia. It may be all over the place, but that's who I am. And I just wanted people who may be suffering from similar symptoms to maybe not be so dismissive of those symptoms. It may not be just acid reflux. Go get it checked out. Because honestly, I don't know. Maybe there's something that we could have done had I went in sooner and said, hey, I'm experiencing these symptoms and something's not right about it. Maybe I could have staved it off. I don't know. But according to the medical community, I said it before, they don't know how or why it develops. It just happens, and that's it. I know that there are worse conditions out there, but I'm blessed to be alive, and I'm happy that I have an opportunity to alleviate the symptoms. My esophagus and my esophageal sphincters will never work properly. And it's weird. It's not weird, but now, like, when I am able to swallow and it does, everything works the way it's supposed to, which is rare. When I drink water and it's cold and I feel it enter into my stomach, I can't believe how much I took for granted something so simple as swallowing food. But that's beside the point. So I just put this video out for awareness, because I know that there's people out there who may be suffering from similar symptoms and may be dismissing them as just acid reflux. And it may not be acid reflux. You may have something more serious, and I want people to be aware. I'll probably make a follow-up video after the surgery just to document how it went, how the procedure went, and what I'm feeling throughout my recovery. But until then, I would like to thank you for stopping by and watching my video. And if you are suffering through some similar symptoms, I hope this helped. Anyway, we'll see you soon. Take care.